What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the FantasyPros YouTube channel. I am your host today, Mike Tagliere, here with you as always on Sunday morning, talking you through the toughest decisions of the week, going over the injuries, talking DFS, whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm here for you guys for the next hour. Before I do get into the start-sit questions and all those, obviously we're going to touch on the injuries really quick, just so you guys, there's some people that don't pay attention all week. I know there's some of you out there who understand what's going on and you've paid attention, but we'd like to just do a quick recap at the top, and then we're going to get into the questions, because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of questions about players that are replacing some that are highly questionable, whatever the case may be, but we're going to be going through that right now. So before I get started, guys, do me a favor, go down, click the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Obviously we want to do things, and even the fantasy playoffs are coming up, and then after that we're going to be doing things with the playoff fantasy. We're going to obviously be covering the draft all off season. There's going to be a lot of content here, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and like it. So starting with the guys that are out this week, it's a long list. I'm just going to run through it really quick. AJ Green, obviously. Marlon Mack is not playing. Jonathan Williams will get another start for the Colts. Damian Williams is out for the Chiefs, so that's a big one where people, LaShawn McCoy moves into, low-end RB2, high-end RB3 territory. It isn't an easy matchup against Oakland, but it's still a start for him. Jordan Howard is out another week, which means Miles Sanders will be the lead back there. Obviously, a good situation for him against Miami. You go down to T.Y. Hilton. He was scratched right before Thanksgiving game started, so that's like a big one. T.Y. Hilton is out for the Colts. It seems like Paris Campbell's probably going to play. Juju Smith-Schuster out. He cleared the concussion protocol, still has the knee injury, not playing today. Golden Tate out with a concussion, not playing. Evan Ingram still missing in action. He's going to be out this week. He's hoping to get back next week. There's no guarantee there, but I would expect Evan Ingram to return next week. Gerald Everett is out for his matchup with the Cardinals. I mean, if you were holding on to Gerald Everett hoping for the matchup with the Cardinals, well, he's not playing. So Tyler Higbee is the guy that's going to be the tight end, obviously, that's going to be seeing the most targets for the Rams. The question is he involved enough to start him in fantasy? Eric Ebron, he was placed on IR. So if you missed that, he was placed on IR earlier this week, and he is out for the year. So he's not playing, obviously. Jack Doyle, going to get a lot of targets and is a competent start. David Njoku, apparently he's healthy, but the Browns coaches feel like that he shouldn't play yet, which is really weird. I don't know what's going on there, but he's not playing, so obviously don't want to play him. Matt Breida was announced as out, so he's not playing this week, which means you're going to get Tevin Coleman, you're going to get Raheem Mostert, you're going to get Jeff Wilson, but it's a terrible matchup. You have, let's see, James Conner is doubtful for the matchup today. He's not going to play. You're going to get Benny Snell with Devlin Hodges under center. It's just going to be an ugly game. And then we have Zach Ertz, who's a game-time decision. That's like a big one that people are paying attention to, right? Because obviously Zach Ertz, you want to play him if he's on the field. But if anything, I'm downgrading Zach Ertz a little bit. I have him as the number 4 tight end right now. It's not like it's a massive downgrade, but it is a downgrade. You have to pay attention to that. Dallas Goedert is a start. I have him as tight end 7 right now. He would move up to tight end 4 if Ertz were to miss this game. So pay attention to that. We should get news as we're going through the show here. The other questionable guys are Chris Thompson. He seems like he's going to play for the Redskins today, so it just muddies that backfield a little bit more. Mohamed Sanu seems like he's going to play for the Patriots. The Patriots have like half of their team sick. There's guys that have not practiced all week, which is really weird. It's going to be it's really difficult for me to gauge that game, honestly, because if they're dealing with a flu or something like that, I know this past week I've been dealing with a sickness all week, and it was a throat and it was a chest, and I'm finally towards the end of it where you probably still hear some congestion, but it's not fun to deal with. And they actually had 2 different planes fly out to Houston, one with the sick players and one with not. So there's a lot of variables in that Patriots-Texans game. And then Adam Thielen, this is the biggest one, guys. And Adam Thielen, I will tell you guys from my own personal fantasy lineups, I have a must-win game where I have Adam Thielen in there as the wide receiver, and I don't feel great about it. I mean, on my bench, it's full of other players. Like, I would have to pick up somebody off the waiver wire to start over him, and I'm debating it. I'm debating starting someone like I was looking at like an Albert Wilson, and I don't know if Adam Thielen plays. I'm debating just picking up Olabisi Johnson and grabbing him in case. So if Thielen's inactive, I could just swap to him. But it's rough, man. I don't know if Thielen plays on Monday night, and that's the worst part about it, is it's a Monday night game, and you're not going to know, right? Thielen reportedly had a little bit of a setback, and they're saying that he won't play unless he's 100%, which makes sense. He's already tried to come back too early once before. I'm worried about Adam Thielen. I just don't know if he plays. So if you have someone like Auden Tate, I would probably play those guys over Adam Thielen this week, because it's rough. I mean, it's really tough for me to say. So that's going to cover the injuries, guys. Just so you guys know, I'm going to go through as many questions as I possibly can for you and get into those. So I'm going to take a sip real quick and get into that. All right. Sorry, I might need to drink more than normal, obviously with this throat thing going on. So, all right, let's start right at the top. Francis asks, Shady or Carson? I mean, I'm going to go with Carson here just because LaShawn McCoy, they have still not given him a really big workload. I mean, we've seen Damian Williams out before, and we didn't see LaShawn McCoy walk into like a gigantic workhorse role. They're going to give Darrell Williams some touches in that backfield. So I'm going to go with Chris Carson. The Seahawks have made it clear that Chris Carson is still the guy. I mentioned this in the primer. I said that, like, so my take on this backfield is that they were willing to trade away Rashad Penny at the trade deadline, knowing that Chris Carson had the fumbling issues that he did. It's basically them saying that they're willing to deal with those issues in order to get what he brings to the field, his physical running style. So I still think Carson's the guy. I would play him. It's a tough matchup against Minnesota, but LaShawn McCoy's matchup against the Raiders isn't particularly great. So I would go with Chris Carson personally. It's really close, but yeah, I'll go Carson. All right, let's see. Sport Dog, worried about Thielen on Monday night. Diggs isn't available to me. What about picking up Rudolph or Thielen's backup Johnson? Yeah, if it's in a flex spot and you have the option to do that, I would grab Kyle Rudolph over Olabisi Johnson. So Johnson, if Thielen misses the game, Johnson is going to be forced to play in the perimeter a little bit more, which is going to bring down his stock because you want to play in the slot against the Seahawks. That's the best matchup that you could have. Thielen hasn't really played in the slot this year. He's been primarily on the perimeter, and I think that's why we've seen a little decline in his production, outside of touchdowns, obviously. But I think Kyle Rudolph is the guy that benefits most when Adam Thielen is out of the lineup. So I'm going to go with Kyle Rudolph as someone, if it's a flex spot. Like when I was talking about my league, it was for a wide receiver slot. But if you have a flex spot, definitely move Thielen there, and I would say Rudolph is the guy. So I would do that, yes. Michael, let's see, Winston or Darnold? I have Darnold slightly higher. I am lower on Winston than the industry. I'm going to fully admit that right now. Jacksonville is not like the greatest pass matchup. I don't understand why people continue feel they need to attack this game. Like, I know Jameis Winston has been he's been a guy that you can rely on for a high floor. I want to say he's finished as a top 16 fantasy quarterback in each of the last 9 weeks. That's awesome. But they also not been able to run the ball consistently against the Jags. I mean, that's a team you need to run the ball against. I want to say over their last 3 or 4 games, they're allowing over 7 yards per carry. I think this could be a Ronald Jones breakout game. And if you go and look, I mean, there's been 3 quarterbacks that have thrown for 300 yards, but they were all within the first 4 weeks of the season. The Jacksonville Jaguars, there's some wind in that game too. I don't feel like Jameis Winston is a must play, and I'm usually one of those guys that just plays Winston. I'm just willing to put him out there. Darnold, there's some weather issues out there too for that game against Cincinnati, but it's not as bad. It's a little bit more windy in terms of for Jameis Winston's game. I just feel like the matchup. I'm expecting rational coaching here. This is where it comes down to a little game script theory and thinking. I don't believe the Bucs are going to have to throw the ball a whole lot in that game. I think they could run it through there, and I don't think Jameis Winston's going to drop back to pass 50 times like he has been. So I'll go Darnold there. I believe that there's probably a similar ceiling between the two, but I think the floor might be safer with Darnold. It's really close, though. I mean, but again, I'm not really high on Winston this week. That's Rick, half PPR flex, Ronald Jones or Austin Eckler. I would go Ronald Jones. I just mentioned I think that this is potentially his breakout week. Pick 2 wide receivers. Okay, so guys, I'm going to mention you, Rick, and I'm sorry. So if you guys have a sit-start question, please narrow it down to 3 or less players because otherwise it just takes up far too much time and we don't get to as many questions as we can. So I unfortunately have to skip over those. So try and narrow it down to just 2 or 3 players that you're trying to choose between. All right, Zachary asked, good morning, Tags. Need a flex this week. Metcalf, Eckler, and Lindsey have PPR. I would play Phillip Lindsay. DK Metcalf is honestly, he's appealing because the Vikings have been they're a defense that you actually attack through the air. It's really odd to say that because they haven't been that defense for a long time, but you can attack them through the air, but still Metcalf has been a little bit up and down in his productions. The targets have been there, but again, you take the guaranteed touches with the running back first. Eckler is He's obviously interesting because Phillip Rivers, if he's struggling and they're talking about potentially benching him, that he's checking down to Eckler and he's having success doing that. But he is the lesser part of a timeshare, whereas Phillip Lindsay over the last couple weeks, he has out-touched Royce Freeman. It's almost 3-1 at this point. Now with Drew Lock under center, I do believe they're going to go with a run-heavy approach against the Chargers. That's what they should be doing. So I'm going to go with Lindsay in that one. I just think he's the safest play. Tommy asked, should I start Tom Brady or drop Matt Ryan and pick up Ryan Tannehill to start rest of the season? Thanks, Tags. I would start. Oh wait, should I start? All right. I'm confused by this question because you're saying, should I start Tom Brady or drop Matt Ryan? Matt Ryan already played, so you can't choose between him. But maybe you're saying that you should drop. Maybe you have Matt Ryan on your bench and you're talking about dropping him to pick up Tannehill. I have Brady slightly higher this week than Tannehill. Tannehill might offer a safer floor. Tannehill, by the way, has scored at least 19 fantasy points in each of his 4 starts or 5 starts now that he's had. So I do like Tannehill this week, and I think his floor is high. But looking at Tom Brady in terms of what he's going to need to do against Houston and what they've allowed to quarterbacks this year, if there's any week where you can kind of trust Tom Brady, it should be this one. He has been playing like kind of crap recently, but he is getting back Philip Dorsett. Mohamed Sanu is expected to play. There's a lot of things going on in this game. Again, I don't have a great feel for that Patriots-Texans game this week, so it's really tough to say. But I would start Brady over Tannehill, but it is really close. And if you're looking for a floor, I think Tannehill's a safer play. Andrew asked Kareem Hunt, Tevin Coleman, or Tyrell Williams in the flex. It's got to be Tevin Coleman here. I like Tyrell Williams, but against Kansas City, they've actually been really good against perimeter wide receivers. They've been burned in the slot quite a bit. They've been burned by running backs, but they haven't really been dealt much damage on the perimeter. And that game is actually expected to have some swirling winds a little bit. I want to say it's like 14 to 20 miles an hour. And that hurts someone like Tyrell Williams, who he really doesn't catch any more than 3 to 4 passes. I don't think that he's caught more than 4 balls since like way back in like week 2 or week 3, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm a little worried about him. And Kareem Hunt, that's an ugly matchup, but there should be a lot of running back touches to go around. But against Pittsburgh, no, I'm going to go Tevin Coleman here. I don't like any of the matchups, to be honest with you. But I'm going to go Tevin Coleman because he's the one that's locked into with Matt Breida out. He's going to get 12 plus touches, and you kind of hope for the best with him, right? I mean, it's a tough matchup against the Ravens, but it is easier on the ground against them than it is through the air. Noam asked Eckler, Jamal Williams, or Alshon. That's a situation where I'll go Eckler. Alshon's matchup is really good, obviously, against the Dolphins, and he's going to play. He was removed from the injury report. Knowing that Zach Ertz might not play, that's obviously a boost to him, but it's a game that they should be able to run the ball quite a bit, too. We don't know if Alshon's 100% healthy off that ankle injury, but he was removed from the injury report, so we have to assume he's going to be okay. But I will take Eckler. He's basically guaranteed the touches, and you're looking for touchdowns out of those guys, so I'm going to go with Eckler. Jamal Williams is close, but I think they're going to feed Aaron Jones this week. Aaron Jones is like my favorite DFS play at running back, 6,800 on DraftKings. And, everyone has talked about Aaron Jones this week. It's like saying, like, on the Packers, I'm not talking about in like the DFS community. I'm talking about the Packers have said, we need to get Aaron Jones the ball. We need to feed this kid. And I think they're going to have him involved from the get-go. The weather is supposed to be a little bit of a concern in that game. So, yeah, it lowers my expectations for someone like Jamal Williams. So that's why I would go with Eckler. All right, Eric asked, hey, Tags, Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown in standard? I have A.J. Brown slightly higher. It's really close between those two, and Deebo Samuel's been kind of like the number one receiver with Emmanuel Sanders dealing with this rib cartilage injury, but it is a brutal matchup against the Ravens. I mean, that game is going to have rain. Not only is it a brutal matchup, but that game is, I tried to check all the weather reports right before we went live, and that one is like 90 to 95% chance of rain. It's going to decline throughout the day, but it is going to rain. So I'm going to downgrade Deebo Samuel a little bit. And A.J. Brown, the matchup against the Colts is a good one. I mean, that's a zone coverage scheme that they kind of allow those underneath receptions, and then you try and run after the catch. They've been keeping the play in front of them for the most part, but A.J. Brown's a guy that gets it done yards after the catch. He's one of the best in the league this year in creating after the catch. So I'm going to go with A.J. Brown. All right, Angel. Hi, Tags. Hey, should I play Rodgers even with the rain snow at NYC? I have Tannehill, or I could pick up Foles. I would still play Rodgers. Now, it's a wintry mix. That's one of the games that was the first one I checked out because I was like heavily into that game in terms of DFS standpoint. And it seems like it's going to be a little bit like there's not even guaranteed precipitation. It's like kind of like back and forth. Like it's going to be on and off, or you're going to have some rain, some snow. It's right around that 31 to 34 degree mark. Rodgers has played in that throughout his career. Obviously, being in Green Bay, he's played in that weather quite a bit. And as long as there's not crazy winds and like snow to the point where people are just falling down all over the field, I think it's going to be fine. So I'm not going to downgrade Rodgers too much. I do think that it lowers the ceiling of him and like from a DFS standpoint, but I'm not going to take him out of lineups for guys like that. Let's see. All right. Sorry, guys, it skips over. So I'm not skipping any questions intentionally. Sometimes I just have to like scroll down and it just like flashes. So I'm going to get to as many as I can. All right, Rogy's point. Mark Andrews or Jack Doyle in half PPR, thanks. Yeah, this is a tough matchup for Mark Andrews. I'm going to go with Jack Doyle here, just knowing that the targets, like in terms of like, where are the targets going, right? Like you have to look at that and say, okay, Eric Ebron's on IR. That's obviously a boost for Jack Doyle's role, right? Doyle was already playing more snaps. He was already seeing like more targets. Well, kind of before with T.Y. Hilton on the field, but now T.Y. Hilton's out of the lineup too. And it's like, where are all these targets going? We just lost basically like 13 targets per game between those two, and they're going to be funneled throughout the team. But I think Jack Doyle gets a lot of them. Mark Andrews is someone that does rely on some bigger plays, but against the 49ers, I just don't know if it happens this week. I mean, the 49ers have been the best in the NFL at defending tight ends, and it's not even like close. Like they've allowed 4.47 yards per target. That is ridiculous. There is no team in the NFL that has averaged that has allowed fewer than 5.91 outside of them. So we're talking like a 20% decrease from the next closest team in terms of tight ends, what they've allowed in yards per target. So it's not a good matchup for him. I mean, most people are starting him, but if I have Doyle, I would start Doyle. Shelby asks, good morning. Good morning, dude. Jonathan Williams, Carson, or Lindsey? I have Philip Lindsay as the highest one of these. Jonathan Williams is really close. Like he's moving up my chart in terms of like, again, where are those targets going? Is Nyheim Hines more involved? Jonathan Williams? There's a lot of question marks there, but I'm going to go with Lindsay. That's just a game where the Broncos should keep the ball on the ground. So Lindsay should have a good game. Half PPR, Brady or Darnold? I have Brady higher. I do. I think Darnold probably comes with a higher floor, but Brady's been throwing the ball so much, and in a good matchup against Houston, it's hard for me to say that I would go away from him. I have him as like the QB 11 on the week. I haven't trusted Brady as of late because he hasn't looked particularly good, but the Texans didn't have a good pass rush with J.J. Watt, and it only got worse without J.J. Watt. So if you don't pressure Tom Brady, that's a real problem because he will dice you up. Where Tom Brady struggles is when he's under pressure. So if they can't get pressure to him, he's going to play well. How will the weather impact Aaron Rodgers? I already talked about that one. I don't think it messes with him too much. I think it might limit his ceiling a little bit, but I don't think it matters too much. Mick 47, Ravens defense versus New England defense. I mean, knowing that New England's defense is dealing with all these with the illnesses that they have, and knowing that they've gone to the extent like to have two different planes travel, like so one plane carrying the sick members and one team carrying the healthy ones, that's a little problematic for me. So Bill Belichick, one of the things that he does so well is he prepares his team for their opponent, and like, you know, they're always prepared for what's coming. And if they didn't practice at all this week, that's a little worrisome. There's like quite a few players apparently that didn't practice at all. So I would go with the Ravens defense. I mean, Garoppolo I know he hasn't turned over the ball like a ton. He has turned the ball over quite a bit, but he should have more turnovers than he does based on what I've seen. So I'm going to go with the Ravens there. Michael says pick 2 in standard. Fuller, Dede, Mike Williams. Thanks, Tags. All right. In a standard league, you're not so worried about the points per reception. Will Fuller is someone that I almost want to start I feel the need to start him almost every single week because you don't want to miss out when he has those big weeks. But against the Patriots, you wonder, it's like, is this one of the weeks where you'd consider benching him? I think it is. I think I would probably play it safer. We can go with Dede Westbrook and Mike Williams because if Will Fuller catches, let's say he catches, it doesn't even matter the amount of receptions, but let's say he goes for 80 yards and a touchdown. That's a massive, that would be the biggest game of the year basically against the Patriots. So that would be a massive game. It's not going to crush you if you're missing out on that. However, if he goes for, 35, 36 yards, no touchdown, it could crush you, where it's like you go Dede Westbrook, Mike Williams, those guys should see more targets. They should have like a safer floor. So I'd probably go Dede, Mike Williams there. But it's close. Michael, full point PPR, Chubb, Miles Sanders, LaShawn McCoy pick 2. Oh, it's Chubb and Miles Sanders for me. Miles Sanders is a must play, and Chubb you're playing every single week. I know it's the Steelers, and it is a tough matchup. I have him in like high end RB2 territory, but you still play him, especially going against Devlin Hodges. I mean, he's not going to put up massive points on them, so it's against the Browns. So that just feels like an ugly game altogether, and it just screams like grind it out. And Chubb is the guy they're going to do that through. So Chubb and Miles Sanders for me. James, Royce, Freeman, Mostert, or Madison? I know it's an absolutely disgusting question. It kind of is. Madison, I think, has to be crossed off just because like that game script in Seattle in terms of what we're expecting. It's not one of those games where he's going to see a whole lot. He might see, 5 to 7 carries, but he's not really involved in the passing game so much. So he's crossed off. Royce has kind of like faded into the background. I'm going to go with Mostert here. I just feel like Mostert is the most explosive running back in that backfield. I think he's better than Tevin Coleman. I do. And he has played better than Tevin Coleman this year. So the matchup against the Ravens, they're probably going to try and run the ball quite a bit. That's the best way, I guess, you could that you can move the ball on them. They're not going to be very successful, but there should be enough volume in a game where they're expecting messy conditions. Like I said, a lot of rain. So I'm going to go with Mostert in that one. I just think that he's the one that's going to get the most touches, even though like the matchups aren't great for any of them. I mean, Royce's matchup is probably the best, but he hasn't received touches at all. Like he's kind of faded into the background and just a handcuffed running back now. All right, Jose, Snell, Brandon Cooks, Curtis Samuel in a standard league. I mean, I feel like I'm supposed to say Snell just because like he's guaranteed touches, but I feel like he's boring, like a boring touch guy. I don't feel like – I think I would probably go with Curtis Samuel, to be honest with you, and I'm saying this because – I think the floor is enough. Like Curtis Samuel hasn't shown a ceiling at all. Like he basically, in terms of, I was actually looking at this earlier today, in terms of expected fantasy output, Curtis Samuel is the worst in the league in terms of what he has and what he's expected based on like where his targets have taken place, how much opportunity he's getting, where those targets are coming from, who they're coming from. He has scored 39.6 PPR points less than he was supposed to. But still, people are starting him because he's not killing you in your lineup. You're not losing your week because you have him in your lineup. You're just not winning weeks because of him, even though you probably should be. But looking at it, I mean, the guy has scored, at least 5.9 PPR points in every game. He scored double digits in 5 of them. So it's like he's not killing you, but he hasn't had that massive performance yet. But getting that floor of that 5.9 points is better than getting a floor of 50 yards with Benny Snell. Benny Snell's one good game this year came against the Bengals, a team that can't tackle. So I'm not willing to bet on Benny Snell because he had a good game against the Bengals. Everybody has a good game against the Bengals. So I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel there, and I will lower my floor just a little bit in order to gain that upside. I just don't feel like the upside's there with Benny Snell. I shine Robert Woods or Tyler Boyd. I'd go Robert Woods. Tyler Boyd, with Andy Dalton back under center, he does get more appealing, but the matchup against the Jets is the toughest in the slot. Brian Poole, their slot cornerback, has been really good. He's someone that came over from Atlanta. In Atlanta, he had some ups and some downs, but once he joined the Jets, he's been really good inside the slot. You kind of attack them on the perimeter, and not to say Boyd does move out to the perimeter, I think about 45% of the time, so he's going to get snaps there, but the majority of the time he has the toughest matchup, whereas Robert Woods, he should be away from Patrick Peterson. Like Brandon Cooks is going to see Peterson the most of the time with the sides that they play. Robert Woods will see a lot of Byron Murphy, the rookie there. And Robert Woods' targets have been there. Jared Goff has played good in really, really good matchups. The Cardinals constitute as a really, 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 really good matchup. So Robert Woods, it is for me. Garrett asks Kyler Murray or Sam Darnold. I'd go Kyler Murray. He does make me nervous a little bit with the hamstring, and I did lower him in my rankings a little bit because of that. But let's not pretend that Sam Darnold's still not the guy that people like legitimately hated a couple weeks ago. That team does not protect, like they don't pass protect very well, and it's not to say that that the Bengals are going to bring much pressure. They don't. But at the same time, Sam Darnold can still go full Sam Darnold at any point. The weather is a little bit concerning in there. At least Kyler Murray's playing inside of a dome. The Rams defense hasn't looked particularly great as of late, but I'd go with Kyler. I just think the floor is better with him. I understand the concern, though. I really do. Colleen asks, Jonathan Williams or Ronald Jones need some points. I'm going to go with Ronald Jones here. I might live to regret that, but Ronald Jones, we talked about this in the podcast this week, and I said that David Johnson, if you guys recall, like back when he started his career under Bruce Arians, he was returning kicks to start the year. He was only getting, 4 to 6 touches per game. He was slowly getting increased. Then all of a sudden it was like Bruce Arians said, okay, I'm gonna trust David Johnson, and he became a fantasy superstar. I think that this could be the week for Ronald Jones. It's like he's already got the starting role now going against a Jaguars team that, again, they've been crushed. I think it's over the last 4 weeks they've allowed over 7 yards per carry on the year. I mean, it's not even just the last 4 weeks. Like, they've struggled all year because on the year they're allowing 5.62 yards per carry. They're allowing over 1 PPR point per opportunity. And what an opportunity consists of is a target or a carry. So even if Ronald Jones only gets 13 to 15 opportunities in this game, an average running back with those touches against this team would have produced 13 to 15 PPR points. That's obviously really good. So I'm going to go with Ronald Jones here. Jonathan Williams, I mean, he got a massive workload last week, and he's in the conversation, but I would go with Ronald Jones. Likely need to replace Thielen, Standard League, Tyler Boyd, or McCoy versus Oakland. I'm probably just going to take the guaranteed touches with McCoy against Oakland. It's not a great matchup, but Oakland has started to struggle a little bit over the last few weeks, where it's like the injuries may have started to add up for them because they've had so many injuries on their defense that it's tough for them to continue to be a solid run defense, especially with the secondary as weak as they are. So I'll go with McCoy, just the guaranteed touches. Sonny asked Cousins or Winston. I would play Jameis Winston in that situation. Cousins, that game, I think that game is going to be lower scoring than people think. Playing in primetime in Seattle is probably a tough thing to do. Seattle's defense has been playing a little bit better. Kirk Cousins has no mobility. He might be without Adam Thielen. So I'm going to go with Winston here. Wentz or Winston. I would play Carson Wentz. I think the floor is higher for Carson Wentz this week, and you could say the ceiling is higher too, just because, again, the matchup dictates that. So I'm going to take the safety because quarterbacks against the Dolphins this year, I'm going to pull it up. I want to say that, is it 9 of 11? It may, there it is. All right. So yeah, 9 of 11 quarterbacks have finished with at least 15.6 points against them. There have been 6 quarterbacks who have scored 20 or more fantasy points against them. Carson Wentz needs kind of like a get right game, and this could be that game. He is getting, Alshon Jeffrey back in the lineup. He's getting Nelson Aguilar back in the lineup. It seems like Zach Ertz might play, but Dallas Goedert's playing fine even if he sits this one. Miles Sanders in the run game. I do like Miles Sanders this week, but at the same time, the Eagles' run game has not been what people kind of expected it to be, and it's not what it really should be. I mean, they invested a second-round pick in Miles Sanders. Obviously, that offensive line is supposed to be one of the best in the league. I know that Lane Johnson was out last week, that they've had some injuries, but at the same time, this was an offensive line that was supposed to produce. And if Carson Wentz and the receivers are struggling a little bit, they should be able to rely on them a little bit more. Against the Dolphins, they should, but at the same time, there will be production for Carson Wentz here. I'm going to go with Wentz. Craig, hi tags. Hey, Carson, Eckler, or Ronald Jones? I'm going Ronald Jones here. Again, I've talked about that. It's a really tough matchup against Minnesota. Obviously, there's some concerns about Rashad Penny. I believe that Carson's still the lead back. They may involve Penny a little bit more. Maybe instead of being a 85-15 split, it goes to 70-30, something like that. But I still think Carson's the guy, but it's a brutal matchup against Minnesota. Eckler, obviously a backup running back in a tough spot. I mean, Denver's been a really tough team to score points against in general. Eckler is someone that's scored much more than he was supposed to in terms of what his opportunity is. So he's due for some regression in terms of his scoring. But Ronald Jones, I'm going with. I'm riding and dying with Ronald Jones this week. I kind of like. I mentioned, this is another thing I said in the podcast, or maybe even the live stream. I don't remember which one it was, but I said that I feel like going into the fantasy playoffs, people are going to be like, well, I'm glad that Miles Sanders and Ronald Jones decided to have big weeks, in week 13 when I'm already out of the playoff hunt where it didn't even matter anymore. I could see that being the case this week. Let's see. Jake, tight end and flex, PPR. Olsen, Goddard. Okay, there's too many. I'm sorry, Jake. It's got to stay under 4, dude. Let's see. Juan David, do I drop Matt Ryan or Brady? I have Tannehill. I would drop Brady if I'm dropping anybody. I might play Brady this week, but over Tannehill, but it's close. It's close enough to where if you really want to stick with Tannehill, I have no issue with that. His floor should be high. His floor is probably higher than Tom Brady's. Let's see. Ryan asked, hey, tags, half PPR, Kareem Hunt or Benny Snell? That's probably a situation where I'll go with Snell and just kind of hope for a touchdown because he is getting the short yardage work. He's getting the early down work, and I don't know I don't think either of those teams score very much in this game. I just think it's an ugly game. It's obviously a rematch of that, game that took place a couple weeks ago. And Kareem Hunt, I don't know. I mean, Pittsburgh's been so good against the run. I can't go with Hunt in that one. I got to go with the lead back and take Benny Snell. Kane Break. Good morning, Tax. Good morning. 10-team PPR flex, Shady, Rojo, or Alshon Jeffrey. Ronald Jones is my pick there. Alshon Jeffrey is enticing, someone that I would consider, but no, I'm going to go with Ronald Jones. Shannon, hey, Tags. Hey, Goddard or Mark Andrews. Looks like Ertz will be active. Yeah, I haven't seen official word on that yet. I'm paying attention to see if I see anything pop up, but I'm going to go with Goddard regardless, because if Ertz goes out there, we've seen this year multiple times where guys try and go out there and gut it out through a hamstring injury, which is the dumbest thing you could do. Basically, you just have to rest it. There's only one way to fix a hamstring injury. It's to rest. And if he's out there, he could re-injure himself. Dallas Goedert has been seeing tons of targets, even with Zach Ertz in the lineup. So if something were to happen to Ertz, Goddard gets a massive boost. It's enough for me to play him over Andrews this week. Yes. Derek, hey, Tags. Hey, full PPR flex, Mixon or Tevin Coleman? I'd go with Mixon. I mean, Mixon's matchup is not good either. The Jets are actually leading the NFL in terms of yards per carry, what they've allowed. They're right around like 3.1 yards per carry on the year. But Mixon has been getting more work. Andy Dalton will check down to his running backs a little bit more than Ryan Finley did. Hopefully they involve Mixon more in the passing game. But either way, Mixon's been getting a lot of touches. He's not in a timeshare like Tevin Coleman is. And Tevin Coleman's matchup is just as bad against the Ravens. So I'm going to go with Mixon there. All right. All right. Billy asked, hey, Tags, need to pick a defense, Steelers, Packers, or Jets? I saw you have the Steelers ranked the highest, but I have trust issues against the Browns. I don't know why you have trust issues against the Browns, though. I mean, the Browns are going to be without their starting left tackle in this game. Obviously, Baker Mayfield hasn't been the greatest this year. He's gotten a lot better with Kareem Hunt in the lineup, and it's made a difference. But the Packers are interesting, especially with the weather there. That could be a thing. If you wanted to play the Packers, I have no issue with that. I wouldn't play the Jets. But the Packers or the Steelers would be my choice for sure, because the Packers can get after the quarterback. They do bring a lot of pressure. The weather is going to be a little bit of a factor in that game. He is without Daniel Jones is without Golden Tate. He's without Evan Ingram. So there's a lot of things that he's kind of missing. So if you wanted to play the Packers, I have no issue with that. If that's like your gut telling you that you don't want to play the Steelers, you can go with the Packers. Craig, good morning, Tags. Wilson or Winston? Good morning. I'd go with Wilson there. I mean, again, you don't move the ball on the ground against Minnesota. You kind of go through the air. So I'm going to go Russell Wilson. I do have my concerns about that game in general. In terms of like points standpoint, I just don't see that as a very high scoring game, but Wilson gives you a higher floor than Winston. Let's see, Goff or Rodgers in bad weather. I'm still going to go Rodgers here. I like Jared Goff this week, and that's something I have not said in quite a long time. I've been the one ragging on Jared Goff. I'll tell you that he has 18 passing touchdowns in his last 19 games. He's been terrible. But when he has good matchups, he plays really well. That game is also in a dome, so there's little to worry about. Arizona's terrible. But I'm still going to go with Rodgers because I'd be kicking myself if I sat Rodgers for Goff and then Goff, goes full Jared Goff on us. Let's see. Ryan asked, Jameis Winston, Darnold, or Tannehill today. I have Tannehill ranked the highest. Me personally, I want to say that the consensus is Jameis, but I really don't understand the Jameis love this week. I'm usually the one leading the charge for Jameis Winston. I just don't think they match up particularly well with the Jaguars, and I think Jameis is going to be under a lot of pressure. So I'm going to go with Tannehill here. Kyle asks, Melvin Gordon or Jonathan Williams, and Debo or Emmanuel. So let's start with Melvin Gordon or Jonathan Williams. I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon. Denver is starting Drew Lock today. And Drew Lock, if you guys watch preseason football, he looked terrible. I don't think that Drew Lock's going to be as bad as he was in the preseason, but it didn't look good. They're going to hide him a little bit. I don't think they're going to have him throw a whole lot. This should be a slower paced game. But if you're looking for a game, from the Chargers who don't want Phillip Rivers to turn it over, they don't want to get him benched and all that stuff, they're going to be moving the ball through their running backs. And honestly, it's the best way to move the ball against Denver. Their pass defense is legitimate. And I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon here. And then Debo or Emmanuel. I almost want to say Devo just because he's the guy that he's healthy. I think he was removed from the injury report altogether, and Emmanuel Sanders has played like less than half the snaps over the last 2 weeks. So I'm probably going to go Deebo Samuel just because he's actually healthy. Emmanuel Sanders is obviously he's the better receiver, but I'll go Deebo if forced to pick one. I think there's better options though. Good morning, Tax. Love the show. Deshaun Watson or Nick Foles? This is so weird. So Keith, thank you, man. First, thank you. Good morning. And I love that you love the show. And if you guys are here watching the show and you're enjoying it, please do me a favor. Click the like button below. Click subscribe if you haven't already. We've been building this YouTube channel. And I don't even know. What are we up to? 39,000 subscribers. Can we hit 40 by the end of the fantasy season? I think we can. But let's see. In regards to Deshaun Watson and Nick Foles, this is really tough because Foles is someone I really don't want to trust if I don't have to. The matchup is fantastic against the Bucs. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We're not worried about the matchup. That one was someone, I'm actually going to pull up the weather in that game because that was something that they were talking about their wins. And I'm going to check the updated, that one. That one is in, let's see. I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to look this up because Jacksonville. All right. Jacksonville weather, precipitation. It looks like that there's only like 30% chance, but the winds is what? Okay. It looks like things have cleared up there. Okay, I take it back. So the winds are dying down as the day goes on. 20 mile an hour winds, 21 mile an hour winds right now for game time. And that's obviously a little concerning for Foles. Man, that's a tough one. I'm not really, but Deshaun Watson, this is what I talked about. This is the reason that I mentioned at the top of the show that I'm kind of at a loss for words when it comes to the Patriots game, the Patriots-Texans game, because I don't know if the Patriots are suddenly going to have some guys inactive. I don't know if they're suddenly going to just not show up because they're all sick, because if you have the flu and you're dealing with that, your body just doesn't respond the way you want it to. You don't move as fast. You slouch in your chair. You do so many different things. I literally just went through this. So that's what makes me a little worrisome about. I'm probably going to have to say Deshaun Watson just because of all these factors and the fact that I just don't trust Nick Foles. If Nick Foles has a bad passing game, there's nothing that saves him. Nothing. They could bench him for Gardner Minshew. He offers nothing on the ground. I know it's a good matchup against Tampa Bay, but I'm probably just going to say that I'd go with Deshaun Watson. I don't think I could live with myself if I ever did that and then missed out on a playoff appearance because of it or something. Philly defense or Steelers defense? I think you have to go Philly. Basically against Miami this year, the worst, I think the absolute worst the defense has finished against them is defense 11 on the week. So they've all finished as a top 12 defense, every single team that's played against them. So yeah, I'm going to go with Philly there. They've been playing better too in terms of their pass defense. Buffed up, Isabella or Hollywood Brown. I'm going to go with Marquise Brown. It's not a good matchup for him at all, but Isabella is splitting snaps. He's not on the field in a full-time role at all. Keyshawn Johnson's still getting snaps. Obviously Kirk's there. They're still involving Farrell Cooper too. So yeah, I can't say that Isabella is even on my radar right now, so I'd go Hollywood. Lewis asked Devontae Parker, Brandon Cooks, or Mike Williams standard. I think it's got to be Devontae Parker. Parker's just been so consistent. People don't realize just how good he is. And if you remove Devontae Parker's name from his actual startability in terms of you just put their numbers and what they've done all year and you take away their name, Devontae Parker would be considered a top 24 wide receiver and you'd play him every week. That's how I'm going to approach this. Brandon Cooks, Goff has struggled on his deep ball. That's why Brandon Cooks is he's really struggled when he's in the lineup. Mike Williams is missing touchdowns. That can happen at any point, yes, but it hasn't happened yet. So let's take the guy that's been giving us the solid floor in Devontae Parker. Ole, good evening. Good evening. Half PPR, Mixon or Devontae Parker. That's a situation where I'll go Mixon. I'll take the guaranteed touches from the running back because, again, Philadelphia has been playing better in their secondary ever since they got healthy. They got Ronald Darby back. Jalen Mills is playing okay. They've been playing better. So I like Parker as a floor play, but I don't think it's he's a must play by any means. So I'm going to go with Mixon here. Just take the guaranteed 18-plus touches. Tony, hey, Tags, play Chris Conley today or wait on Adam Thielen tomorrow? That's a situation where I'd probably just go Conley. Conley has gotten 7 or more targets in each of the last 4 games. He was 3rd in the NFL last week in air yards, so the opportunity is there for him. And the matchup obviously is great this week. He's one of those guys that I would choose to play over Thielen. We get to the point where it's around wide receiver 45 territory, where it's those are the guys where I'm should I play Thielen? Should I wait? That's how you get. But I'm going to be honest, my gut tells me that I don't think Adam Thielen plays tomorrow night. All right, let's see. Should I drop Golden Tate for Sterling Shepard full PPR? I don't know why you drop Golden Tate. There's nobody else that you could drop because, I mean, I like Shepard. He's a guy that, he's getting like 9 targets when he's in the lineup. And he's going to get quite a bit today against Green Bay. I do like him. Obviously, a lot more this week. If you need Shepard this week, play him. But I don't know if you need to drop Golden Tate. That's something I'd want to look at the rest of the season schedule for, just to see like the matchups in the slot because obviously Tate's getting those snaps. Cody asked OBJ, Alshon, or Westbrook. Half PPR. This is what the world's come to, right? I'm going to go Odell Beckham. I mean, Beckham, the last time they played against the Steelers, he burned them. He almost had a touchdown, like on the first drive of the game. He actually almost caught a second touchdown. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Odell. He hasn't been the superstar receiver that anybody was expecting this year. I get that, but he's delivered a solid floor, and we know the upside is there in the end potential. So I'm going to go with him. Should I start Sanders or Jeffrey? If this is Miles Sanders, I'm going Miles Sanders. If it's Emmanuel Sanders, I'm going Alshon Jeffrey. So it just depends on which Sanders that is. But I'm going to assume, well, I'll just tell you the order. Miles Sanders, Alshon Jeffrey, Emmanuel Sanders. That's the order I would have it. Melvin Gordon or Jonathan Williams in the flex, half PPR. I would go with Melvin Gordon. Yeah. Matt Garrett, need 2 PPR, Tyler Boyd, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, risk, help. Yeah, this is easy for me. I'd go with Boyd and Robert Woods. I've talked about Boyd's matchup being tougher than people like kind of realize, but it's still fine. It's not like you can't start him. And I like Robert Woods this week. So yeah, I would easily go with Boyd and Woods and just remove all the risk from Thielen. I can't do it. Much love tags. Much love, Michael. Half PPR, Curtis Samuel or Sammy Watkins. I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel. I mean, so Curtis Samuel he's been a guy that's been getting, again, plenty of opportunity. The opportunity has been there. He has scored a lot less than he should. And looking at where they line up on the field this week, I actually think that it could be the Curtis Samuel breakout week that we've been waiting for. Unfortunately, Kyle Allen has really struggled to throw the deep ball. That's why Curtis Samuel hasn't popped off. But if there's a matchup, he can do it. The Redskins, they did bench Josh Norman. He's not playing. I don't know if they're going to put him back in the lineup this week, but I like Curtis Samuel quite a bit this week. Sammy Watkins, he's been getting opportunity too, and his opportunity obviously comes from Patrick Mahomes, but Watkins has been so underwhelming. I don't know what's going on with him. They need to get Mecole Hardman more involved. I was a Sammy Watkins fan, but he hasn't looked very good this year. We have official word, by the way. Zach Ertz is playing. He is active. James Conner is inactive. Matt Breida, inactive as expected. Zach Ertz, as we mentioned, active. Let's see, Paris Campbell, inactive. So again, Jack Doyle, those targets, man, there's so many. Chris Thompson is active. Demaryius Thomas, active. Miles Jack is inactive for the Jags. Wow, that's another downgrade for that run defense. And Brian Bulaga, the right tackle for the Green Bay Packers, is active despite spraining his MCL last week. Playing in bad conditions, that doesn't really make much sense to me, but it is what it is, and he's playing. So, there you go. Let's see. All right, Michael says, full PPR. There's a lot of Michaels in here today. This is so weird. Full PPR. I have Miles Sanders on my bench. Do I start him over Diggs or Lockett? I would start Miles Sanders over Diggs, yes. I mean, Tyler Lockett's interesting because he's a guy that you have to play, right? I mean, even Diggs, it's really tough to talk about benching those guys, but it's difficult to bench them. But again, you're talking about Miles Sanders, a guy that's locked into touches against the Dolphins. This is a matchup everybody dreams about. If you can't play him this week, you can't play him at all. So Miles Sanders, I would go over Diggs. Not knowing if Thielen's going to play is that's clouding things a little bit with Diggs, because if Thielen's out of the lineup, obviously Diggs moves up quite a bit because I know his target floor is going to be higher. Lockett missed practice on Friday. I didn't see his Saturday practice report, but he's someone that might be still dealing with that leg injury. But yes, I'd find a way to play Miles Sanders. Andrew asked, Shady McCoy or D.D. Westbrook in half PPR? I'll go LaShawn McCoy here. There's so many avenues for you to score points against the Tampa Bay Bucks through your passing game that it could be, DJ Chark. It could be Chris Conley. It could be Nick O'Leary, their tight end. It could be D.D. Westbrook. But there's so many avenues that there's a wide range of outcomes, where with LaShawn McCoy, at least we know he's locked into more than a dozen touches against the Raiders. So I'll go with LaShawn McCoy there. All right. Give me 1 second here. All right, bonjour tags. Bonjour. In half PPR, should I start Goddard or Doyle? Oh, that one's really tough. I have them right next to each other. I have Goddard at 7. I have Doyle at 8, I think. So it's really tough. I'd probably go with Goddard personally. but Doyle makes a lot of sense. Doyle probably comes with a higher floor. Ertz is active, so Hunter Henry or Ertz. I'd go with Hunter Henry. I'm going to go with Henry just because I don't trust players trying to play through hamstring injuries, really. Like, I downgrade them, and that's why I moved Ertz down to number 4 tight end. You're still playing him in most leagues, but if you're choosing between Hunter Henry and Ertz, I would go with Henry. At least we know Henry's healthy. Let's see. Cynthia asks Kirk or McLaurin. Standard, thanks. I'm going to take my chances with McLaurin here. Carolina is, they've been like a relatively good pass defense, but a lot of it has to do in terms of like their production they've allowed, but a lot of it comes down to not allowing touchdowns because they've allowed so many rushing touchdowns. But eventually that's going to flip because the yardage has been there in terms of a per target basis. So I think that McLaurin is a fine play. I don't think he's like a lock, but again, Christian Kirk against that Rams defense, he's probably going to see a lot of Jalen Ramsey because Kirk isn't playing in the slot anymore. He's basically only going in there like 10 to 15% of the time. And that means he's probably going to be tied up with Jalen Ramsey for most of the day. That's obviously the most worrisome matchup there. John, hey Tags, hey, thanks for this every week. Of course, thank you guys for showing up. Half PPR, one wide receiver, one flex. Fuller, Kirk, or Drake. One wide receiver, one flex. All right, so obviously Drake is going to be the guy that I'm going to play in the flex, and I guess I'll go with Kirk. Wait, I'm going to look at my rankings on that one. That one I'm a little torn on. Yeah, I have Kirk slightly higher than Fuller, so I guess that's where I would go. That's where I was leaning, but yeah, I would play Drake, and then I would go Kirk. Kirk, the floor is probably just a little bit higher in terms of like his target share. I don't know what Fuller's going to do against the Patriots. That's such a weird game. I could 100% see that the Patriots defense just like not showing up at all because they're all sick, and all of a sudden we see Watson throw for 300 yards, 2-3 touchdowns, and all of a sudden, we wonder, why do we sit him? Well, it really has to do with more about the Patriots than anything in the health situation. So I'm going to be upgrading those players a little bit. So it makes me question a little bit. I think Fuller has a higher ceiling because he offers one play potential. But yeah, it's tough. Tailored Productions, hey Tags, hey, Snell or Jamal Williams, PPR, or start both and bench either Godwin or Chark. I would not bench Godwin or Chark. I would play Jamal Williams over Snell. Snell's not involved in the passing game at all. And again, the only game that he has really real production in is against the Bengals. And the Browns aren't the Bengals, so I can't. I don't think Snell's like the worst play in the world. He's like an RB3, but I'll go Jamal Williams in a PPR. He's a guy that's getting close to 8 to 12 touches per week, and his are in a much better offense. Nate asked Alshon or DD PPR 12 team flex. I'd go with Alshon. Yeah. I'll go with Alshon here. Jake says, start one. Terry McLaurin, Benny Snell, or Kareem Hunt. This is probably one where I'll go with Benny Snell. Because, again, I chose Snell over Hunt in an earlier question. Just because you're just guaranteed more touches with him. Hunt offers more big play potential because that's the type of player he is. But it's not a guarantee against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been so good against running backs this year. Like literally one of the worst teams to go up against. And then Terry McLaurin obviously has the issues with Dwayne Haskins throwing in the ball. And if Haskins has a bad day, Terry McLaurin's the one who suffers. So let's go with Snell here. It's close. But yeah, I'll go Snell. Yakmeister, Westbrook, AJ Brown, or Eckler, full point PPR. Eckler, yeah, give me the Eckler. He's the guy he's guaranteed touches. Whereas as much as he can be, like he's in the back end of a timeshare. But I'll go Eckler here. Yeah, he's just produced constantly. He's due for touchdown regression. He absolutely is. But if you have Keenan Allen being taken away by Chris Harris Jr., it's like you have to start looking at other alternatives, and Eckler's one of those guys. The C. Jonesy, PPR, Boyd, Crowder, or Jonathan Williams. I will go Jonathan Williams in that one. Again, so if you're ever torn and like legitimately, like let's say that I don't even get to your question, and I'm sorry if I don't, but if I don't get to your question and you're torn between a wide receiver and a running back, most of the time I'm going to tell you to take the guy with the guaranteed touches just because it gives you a higher floor. And that's like a lot of things. There's a lot of things we can't predict in the NFL, right? There's things that like legitimately inches can swing it, but the more touches someone has, the more opportunity, the higher floor, and bigger potential to break a play. Benny Snell's one of those guys is going to get opportunities, but it's like we know there's limited upside there in terms of the type of player he is. So it's like trying to sift through all that stuff and figure it out. It can be difficult, but yeah, that's why I would lean. Like Boyd he's not much big play guy. Crowder's not much of a big play guy. Against the Bengals, by the way, receivers have only averaged 15.5 targets per game. And if you kind of break that up between Demaryius Thomas, Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder, and that volume is low, you're talking about, 4 to 6 targets for Jamison Crowder, which is not ideal for a guy that you're leaning on. So I'll go with Jonathan Williams here. Habib asks, do you like BC Johnson if Thielen sits? Not really, because BC Johnson then moves to the perimeter and it hurts his production. I think BC Johnson is actually better when he plays in the slot, but he would move to the perimeter a lot more with Thielen out of the lineup, so I don't really like him, and that's the thing. Otherwise, I'd just be telling people to just grab BC Johnson if Thielen was if you have Thielen. I don't like him that much. Full PPR pick 2, Drake, Ronald Jones, or Fournette. Yeah, you're playing Ronald Jones and Fournette there. Drake is whatever, but it's not a great matchup against the Rams, but yeah, Ronald Jones and Fournette for sure. Let's see. Hey, Tag Standard, I need a win this week to make the playoffs. I'm locked in with Allen Robinson and Michael Thomas. Do I play Diggs, Lockett, or Rojo? I am going to go Ronald Jones. And again, some people are going to hate me for that because it's been so inconsistent. But even if he gets that 13 to 15 touches in this game against that defense, the Jags defense, and now without Myles Jack, they're continually getting worse. That team is seemingly given up against the run. They lost Marcel Darius a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, I'll take Ronald Jones. All right, Rojo one for you. Shallow league, PPR, need one. Chubb, Rojo, or Lindsey. Playoffs in the line. Thanks, Tags. I'm going to go Chubb. I mean, I can't sit Nick Chubb for Ronald Jones. It's one thing to say that I like Ronald Jones, even if he only gets 13 to 15 touches, but it's another thing to say I'm going to bench him for a guy that gets 20-plus touches per week in Nick Chubb. So I'm going to go Chubb. Let's see. Kyle Allen or Baker Mayfield? Do you have to make this decision? If I'm forced, I guess I'd say Kyle Allen against the Redskins. But yeah, because Baker Mayfield against Pittsburgh, it's not a great matchup for him. He's looked better over the last few weeks, but even going back, like outside of the scripted plays they had at the beginning of that game against the Steelers, he really did struggle. I want to say he threw for less than 200 yards in that game. So yeah. And what's up, Tags? Who would you choose? All right, there's way too many players there, dude. Like narrow that down. Jack in the Box, expectations for Sterling Shepard, weather concerns. I'm not really too concerned about the weather there. I looked at that one. That's one I've been paying attention to quite a bit. And they're saying so the temperatures are going to be in between like 31 and 35 degrees, which is like just borderline freezing. So you could have some rain, you could have some light snow. But the precipitation, like it's not even guaranteed. It's kind of like off and on throughout the game. I believe that you're still able to throw the ball in that weather. Again, as long as it's not too sloppy, I think it's fine. So I'm not too worried about Sterling Shepard. I think the target floor is going to be really high for him against the Packers, and you can move the ball through the air if you want to. So I have him in wide receiver 3 territory as a guy that's probably going to see 8+ targets in the game, and yeah, someone you can trust. Love your inside tags. Already made the playoffs. Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Would you drop Darnold for Tannehill because Darnold's upcoming schedule? I mean, yeah, if you're talking about those guys, I'm fine with streaming quarterbacks at that point. So, yeah, Tannehill does have a better upcoming schedule. Tannehill next week has a great matchup. I actually put out an article every Saturday that talks about weekend waiver wire stashes. So I go through and I talk about players who are going to have fantastic matchups the next week. And Ryan Tannehill is one of those guys that's going to be like a very popular choice off the waiver wire next week due to his upcoming matchup. So, yeah. Let's see. Hit that like button, people. Thanks, Legend. Appreciate that, dude. Kyler Murray or Sam Darnold? I'd go Kyler Murray. That game has shootout potential written all over it. It's played in a dome. You don't have to worry about any of the weather conditions, whereas Darnold does. And Darnold, I mean, that could be a really run-heavy game plan. You don't see teams throw against the Bengals very much. I mean, I want to say teams are averaging less than 30 pass attempts per game, and it's not like Sam Darnold averages tons of yards per attempt or anything like that. So, yeah, I'd go Kyler there. Jasmine, Cooks, Conley, or roll the dice with Thielen. Full point PPR. Thanks, Tags. Let's see. Thielen's out for me. And would it be Cooks or Conley? I think I'll go with Cooks just because, like, both of them are similar plays, right? Like, Conley relies on the bigger targets, the bigger plays to get things done. He has a good matchup against Tampa Bay. Obviously, Cooks against Arizona is not a bad matchup. Patrick Peterson is going to see the most of Cooks this week, but Patrick Peterson hasn't even been the same cornerback since he's returned from his suspension, so it's difficult there. I'm going to go with Cooks just because, I mean, he's a guy that we've seen produce in the NFL for a long time, and if Jared Goff again, if he has better games against these teams that really do struggle. So if he's having a better game, Cooks is going to be a part of it. I guess I'll go Cooks there. Let's see. David asks, full PPR, better chance to boom, McCoy, Mixon, or McLaurin? McCoy. I'd say McCoy, just because he plays in the Chiefs offense with Patrick Mahomes. That game is that one's expected to have some swirling winds. Gusts, I want to say that it's like 17 to 20 miles an hour with like 25 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour gusts. That could be problematic for the passing game down the field. So they could move the ball through McCoy. Mixon, tough matchup against the Jets. McLaurin, how much upside does he really have with Dwayne Haskins? So I'm going to go with McCoy. Let's see. Carson or Rojo? I'd play Ronald Jones over Carson. I'm one of those guys that still believes Carson hangs on to that job, but it might be a little bit more of a timeshare, but I'll go Ronald Jones. The matchup's just too good. Robert asked, hey Tag, standard Higbee or Hollister? I would play Higbee this week. Hollister's matchup is not good against Minnesota. Minnesota, you might see that they've allowed plenty of fantasy points, but they've actually allowed the second fewest fantasy points per target to tight ends. So it's like if you're not getting massive targets, it's worrisome. And on top of that, Hollister is no lock to play in this game. Hollister apparently is dealing with some sort of foot soreness that he suffered in last week's game, missed some practice time this week, so he's not even guaranteed to play. Mason, Crosby, or Gonzalez? I would go Gonzalez just because he's indoors. Shepard or Curtis Samuel? That one's tough. If you're looking for upside, go at Samuel. If you're looking for a floor, go at Shepard. Colin says, good morning, thanks. Good morning. PPR pick 2, Chris Carson, Philip Lindsay. There's 4. Sorry, Colin. Kevin asked, good morning, thanks. Good morning. Kyler or Deshaun Watson? I'm going to go Kyler Murray. Which 2.5 PPR? Christian Kirk, Jamison Crowder, and T. Williams. I don't even know why I'm blanking that. Tyrell Williams. I think Terrence Williams for whatever reason. Which 2? I'd go Tyrell Williams and Jamison Crowder. Jets D or Pats D? Oh, that's a real question, isn't it? I'm going to go with Pats still. Half PPR, LaShawn McCoy, Darius Geis, Darrell Williams. Okay, there's 4. There's too many there, Anthony. Good morning, Tags, and thank you. Pick 1 full PPR, Auden Tate or Alan Lazard. I'm going to go with Tate. Tate, since joining the starting lineup, like his targets are top 20 among wide receivers, and Dalton obviously coming back, that's going to help productivity, efficiency, and the Jets, if you beat them, it's going to be on the perimeter a lot of the time, so I'm going to go with Tate. Let's see. All right, guys. I'm gonna answer a couple more questions before I get out of here. But guys, thank you so much for showing up for another live stream. Almost 5,000 in here. Thank you guys so much. I know it's like a big week for fantasy, and then next week we have the fantasy playoffs. I'm gonna be here every Sunday for you guys. I do it an hour every single week. And if I didn't answer your question, make sure you check out the primer. The primer is where I write a paragraph on every single player from every game, so that you guys, if I don't get to your question, at least it's answered there, or at least you can get my take on that player for the week. But again, let me answer a couple more before I get out of here. Let's see. Please help. Half PPR, Eckler, Fuller, or Curtis Samuel? I would go with Eckler. Just take the guaranteed touches, buddy. Ali asked Sam Darnold or Deshaun Watson. I think I'm going to go Darnold there. It's really close because, again, the Patriots, I just want you guys to know if there's any takes that I have on Fuller or Deshaun Watson, it's that my opinion is varying so much because there's so many things going on with that Patriots defense right now that I don't really know what to expect, to be honest. If these guys are really sick, you might see guys inactive. They may just rest these guys and give them the week off and say, you know what, whatever. If we lose a game to Houston, it is what it is. I don't know. It's crazy. But Steven, start 2 full PPR, Darren Waller, Sterling Shepard, Marquise Brown. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people. Guys, you have to narrow these down. Jay Montoro, hey Tags, pick 2, Woods, Parker, or McLaurin. I would go with Woods and Parker. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Matthew Bernard, hey Tags, half PPR flex, start Jamal Williams or hold out for Thielen. I would just play Jamal Williams in that situation. My gut is telling me that Adam Thielen doesn't play. I have this decision in one of my leagues, and I'm really leaning towards grabbing somebody off the waiver wire to start over him, just because I can't see him coming back early off the hamstring. If he's even the slightest bit of doubt, I just think he has to sit out. You bailed me out last week. Can you help me out again? Sony, Parker, or Metcalf, half PPR, pick 2. Guaranteed touches versus boom potential. Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. I'm going to go with Metcalf and Parker. Let's go with those two. I mean, the thing is Sony, Sony is getting better as like in terms of like the offensive line. Isaiah Wynn came back, and that offensive line looked better last week with him in it. Houston is not a run defense to fear, but again, the concern now is that if the Patriots defense isn't the Patriots defense, all of a sudden we're not going to have as many rushing attempts out of the Patriots offense, which would be the concern, right? So yeah, let's go with Parker and Metcalf. Let's just take the upside here because I don't know if we have much of a floor with Sony Michel to begin with. But guys, that's going to wrap up this I don't know, do I call it episode? Do I call it version? I don't know what to call it, but this wraps up the show. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We obviously do waiver wire videos. We do start sit videos. I do this every Sunday morning. We're going to have more for you guys throughout the off season, throughout the playoffs, all that fun stuff. But yeah, until next time, guys. Lights out.